Do you just hold your bottom hand still and try to turn it with your top hand? Or do you use both hands and make it pop? Some of it is timing related. Some of it you're just not doing it. When you don't transition properly, you get an all back, all forward looking swing, load back, swing forward. And when you transition right, you get this on around feeling. Okay? So what I see in a lot of the videos that are put on the group is this part's nice. Basically, the 3D loading is pretty good. If not perfect, it's pretty good. But this part suffers, okay? Now, some of this is timing, because if you're hitting a moving ball, you're not quite sure when to let the on around happen. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do in your workouts. I'm going to ask you, as soon as you pick up your foot, that you feel like you're going on around. Okay? As soon as you pick up. So what am I doing? Is this the fourth step of the 3D loading? I'm doing all three right there, but I'm also going on around. And I'm holding my leg up. Is that the fifth step of the 3D loading? Okay? So what I see is kids are doing this, they're getting their 3D load and kind of pausing and reading the pitch and then trying to go on around, and they're getting beat. Okay? So think of the pause without the pause, that's the upper body, but the without the pause is the lower body. And so it needs to go, it needs to run, it can't stop. So I've had a fair amount of success with my local kids here in getting them to, as soon as they pick up and start to go, they're going to go right into the on around, whether they swing or not. So get them to do this move. It's like when you start to go on around, when you start to transition, it feels like you're swinging, but you actually haven't swung because you haven't stacked your hands. Okay? And so you might call this a little tilt before the tilt. You might call it the roundabout, call it on around, call it whatever you want to call it, as long as you do it right. We can't delay this move here. We can't delay the transition, and that's what I see happening. I see kids 3D load, and then wait till they see the ball, and then try to go on around and swing, and they get beat. Okay? The transition has to happen whether we swing or not. Okay? We have to figure out this flowing movement. All right? So what I do with my kids is I'll turn the machine on and I say, all right, we're not going to swing. We're not going to hit the ball. We're just going to work on this move here. So when the ball falls from the feeder to the track, that's the equivalent of pitch or handbrake. And when it comes out of the machine, that's the equivalent of pitch release. So I'll say, I want you to start at handbrake, and I want you to be already transitioned at pitch release. So they'll do this. They'll get there every time. After a little bit of work, they'll understand. What they were doing before, they thought they were ready at release and they were here. And they hadn't transitioned. And because they hadn't transitioned, they weren't really on the brink. And therefore, they'd struggle hitting the ball. Sometimes they'd have good timing, most of the time they wouldn't. But when you get the feeling, okay, handbrake, I'm going to be here at pitch release, you'll start to flow. If you're here at pitch release, you're on the brink, okay? And then you can snap your hands and you burst. I mentioned my olive jar. When your wife hands you a jar because she can't open it, she wants you to open it, what do? Do you just hold your bottom hand still and try to turn it with your top hand? Or do you use both hands and make it pop? Okay? There it goes. All right? The leg is turning, the opposite direction as the hip, okay? And the jar burst. What I'm seeing is some stalled legs. They 3D load, but the leg doesn't start to turn. It doesn't start to turn because there's no transition. Right there, right here is where I'm opening the jar, where my leg is doing this and my upper body is tilting. I'm torquing it here and the jar releases there. Okay? So the on around. So whether you're flipping to your son or daughter, or whether you're throwing overhand, or whether they're on the machine, take some reps where hitting the ball is not involved, because as soon as hitting the ball is involved, they want to hit the ball, and they may or may not transition. So flip them or use the machine and get them to start at handbrake and be here at pitch release. And it should flow right into it. Okay, eventually they'll figure out the timing of how that is. Okay, so they'll be right there at pitch release. Okay, and then after they get that, have them hit the ball, but make sure they transition before they swing.